Rome's darkest scandals: sex, power, and betrayal. Forget gladiators. Forget marching legions. Rome's real battles were fought in bedrooms, in back rooms, and in whispers that toppled emperors faster than armies ever could. A daughter exiled by her father. A queen who seduced the world's most powerful men. A mother murdered by her own son. This wasn't just history. It was a through line running across the entire history of the Roman Empire scandal as survival, sex, power, and betrayal written into the DNA of the empire. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The stories that destroyed Rome sound a lot like the headlines we scroll through today. Masks of virtue. The Roman Republic didn't collapse in a day. It rotted from the inside out in bedrooms, in back rooms, in whispered rumors that toppled generals faster than armies ever could. And sometimes all it took was one scandal. Rome built its identity on virtue's discipline, strength, moral clarity. Senators paraded in gleaming white togas, temples rang with prayers to Jupiter, and generals spoke of duty to the Republic. But every empire wears masks. And behind Rome's marble mask of virtue was a stage of lust, betrayal, and corruption so deep it made even its gods blush. Consider Julius Caesar. He conquered Gaul, crossed the Rubicon, and seized Rome, yet in the taverns, in the baths, and even in the Senate, his enemies called him the Queen of Bithynia. Why? Because decades earlier, as a young envoy, he had been rumored to share a bed with King Nicomedes of Bithynia. Whether true or not didn't matter. In Rome, to be accused of submitting even in rumor was political death. Except Caesar turned it into theater. The whispers didn't end his career. They fed his legend. Here lies the paradox. In Rome, scandal destroyed some and immortalized others. Take Marcus Antonius Mark Antony. To his soldiers, he was a hero, generous, charismatic, fearless. To Cicero in the Senate, he was a drunken womanizer whose nights of orgy weakened the Republic. Cicero's speeches didn't just critique Antony's policies. They painted lurid images of wine-stained lips and shameful affairs. Reputation was the real battlefield. Rome understood what America now knows. Public perception can kill faster than any assassin's blade. Roman law even had a statute, the Lex Scantinia, that criminalized sexual misconduct among elites. But here's the twist. It was almost never enforced consistently. Instead, it was a weapon dragged out of obscurity only when someone powerful needed an excuse to ruin a rival. Love as a weapon. In Rome, marriage was never about love. It was about survival. Every kiss was a contract. Every bed was a battlefield. And sometimes, the wrong lover could destroy an empire. Rome may have built aqueducts, armies, and amphitheaters, but the true foundations of power were made in bedrooms and banquets. Where America has dynasties, the Kennedys, the Bushes, the Clintons, Rome had bloodlines and alliances, glued together not by ballots but by arranged unions. And just like today, scandal didn't weaken the system. It fueled it. Julius Revolt Augustus, Rome's first emperor, crafted a moral vision for the empire. He passed the Lex Julia, laws punishing adultery and promoting family values. He cast himself as the model father, the pater patriae, the father of the fatherland. But here's the twist. His own daughter, Julia, became the empire's most infamous rebel. Married off first to his general Agrippa and then to his heir Tiberius, Julia hated both unions. And so she fought back not with armies, but with affairs. Ancient sources whisper that she flaunted her lovers openly, even choosing the steps of the Forum as her theater. Imagine the daughter of America's most powerful president hosting nightly scandals on the White House lawn. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. Augustus had built laws to police morality. Now he had to enforce them against his own blood. He exiled Julia to a barren island, where she languished until her death. The father of the fatherland had sacrificed his daughter to preserve an illusion of virtue. What does it say about an empire when its greatest threat isn't an enemy army, but its own family dinner table? Messalina, lust as a coup. If Julia exposed hypocrisy, Messalina, wife of Emperor Claudius, turned scandal into treason. She was accused of marrying her lover Gicilius in a mock wedding while Claudius was away. To Romanize. This wasn't just infidelity, it was an attempted coup. Marriage itself was political legitimacy. To wed another man was to declare the emperor dethroned. Roman historians, gleefully cruel, claimed Messalina was insatiable, competing with prostitutes in contests of endurance. Was this true, or was it propaganda? The truth mattered less than the effect. Her name became synonymous with corruption, a byword for women who use sexuality to destabilize men of power. Claudius had her executed, but the image stuck. Rome understood something chilling. Sex scandals don't need to be true, they just need to be believable. Sound familiar? Cleopatra. Love as geopolitics, then came Cleopatra. To Romans, she was not just a queen, she was a scandal given flesh. Her liaisons with Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony were framed as seduction. But in truth, they were survival strategies. Egypt was a jewel Rome wanted to consume. By binding Rome's most powerful men to her, Cleopatra extended her throne's life by decades. To Romans, the scandal was unbearable. A foreign woman, a queen, wielding her body to entangle Rome's destiny. To Cleopatra, it was genius. She turned intimacy into empire. And yet, scandal crushed them all. Antony and Cleopatra's love affair ended in suicide. Their reputations mocked for centuries. But look closer, wasn't Cleopatra simply using the tools Rome itself had taught? If Rome weaponized virtue, Cleopatra weaponized desire. So ask yourself, was Cleopatra Rome's greatest scandal, or its mirror? Adoption, rumor, and hidden intimacies, even adoption, Rome's most powerful political tool, was haunted by scandal. When Hadrian adopted Antoninus Pius, who later adopted Marcus Aurelius, whispers spread that bonds between men in power were not only political but intimate. Whether true or not, the mere suggestion mattered. In Rome, love and loyalty could never be untangled, and that uncertainty was its own kind of weapon. Lesser-known detail. Satirists like Juvenal often hinted that in Rome, a wife's family network mattered more than affection. Private affairs weren't just shame. They could swing Senate votes, military posts, even succession. Today, Americans gossip about affairs in the White House, billionaire divorces, dynastic marriages in politics. But think of this, Rome's emperors lived under the same microscope. When Augustus's daughter was exiled, it was like a president disowning his only heir on live television. When Messalina was executed, it was as if a first lady were accused of treason through an affair. When Cleopatra seduced Caesar, it was the equivalent of a foreign leader courting a US president on global TV. The scandals changed the story more than the policy. The people weren't watching tax reforms. They were watching who kissed whom, and maybe so are we. Empires pretend they are ruled by laws and legions. But Rome shows us another truth. Sometimes the fate of nations is decided not in the Senate, but in the bedroom. Every marriage was a treaty, every affair was a declaration of war, and every scandal was both entertainment and execution. Bloodlines and betrayal. In Rome, the most dangerous place wasn't the battlefield. It was the family dinner table. Rome's glory rested on power. But power meant nothing without succession, a lesson repeated across the entire history of the Roman Empire. Who wore the purple next determined whether the empire thrived or bled. Unlike medieval monarchies with clear inheritance, Rome had no fixed law. Emperors could name their sons, adopt heirs, or leave it to the Senate, in theory. This gave flexibility. In practice, it opened the gates of paranoia. A newborn prince meant hope, but it also meant rivals plotting, generals scheming, and senators whispering. In Rome, every cradle rocked not just a child, but the future of the empire. So what happens when your newborn heir is seen not as a blessing, but as a threat? Caligula, from golden heir to scandal. When Caligula became emperor in 37 CE, crowds wept with joy. He was the great-nephew of Tiberius, the last living son of Germanicus, Rome's golden boy general. To the people, Caligula was destiny fulfilled. But within 4 years, the same people whispered he was a monster, accused of incest with his sisters, humiliating senators, and declaring himself a living god. Were the rumors true? Historians still argue. Some think Caligula was assassinated not because of madness, but because scandal was the perfect excuse. In Rome, character assassination always preceded real assassination. Sound familiar? Today, careers end with leaks, rumors, scandals. In Rome, so did lives. Adoption, Rome's dangerous experiment. When bloodlines failed, emperors turned to adoption. Augustus adopted Tiberius. Hadrian adopted Antoninus Pius. Antoninus in turn adopted Marcus Aurelius. This chain produced the so-called 5 good emperors. Rome's most stable period. Adoption looked like genius meritocracy before its time. But even here, suspicion ruled. Was Hadrian's adoption of Antoninus about politics or intimacy? Ancient whispers suggested personal bonds mattered as much as strategy. Hadrian forced Antoninus to adopt not 1 but 2 boys, Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus, locking in a succession plan 2 generations deep. It worked, but also revealed the empire's fragility. Rome needed contracts more complex than treaties just to pass power peacefully. If an empire's survival depends on paperwork more tangled than a modern prenup, how strong is that empire really? Agrippina and Nero, the ultimate betrayal. Few stories capture Rome's poison of bloodlines better than Agrippina the Younger. She was Caligula's sister, Claudius's wife, and Nero's mother. Through cunning, she married her uncle Claudius and convinced him to adopt Nero as heir over his own son. Britannicus. When Claudius died, some said poisoned by a dish of mushrooms, Agrippina prepared, Nero ascended. For a time, mother and son ruled together. Coins even show their faces side by side. But power shared as power resented. Soon, Nero grew restless under her shadow. When Agrippina opposed him, Nero plotted her death. Ancient accounts describe multiple failed attempts collapsing boats, staged accidents until finally, soldiers stormed her villa. Facing the blades, Agrippina supposedly bared her stomach and cried, "Strike the womb that bore Nero." Whether fact or legend, the story resonated because it symbolized Rome itself, a mother birthing her own destroyer. What empire can survive when its very womb becomes a battlefield? The fate of Germanicus, adopted son of Tiberius, haunted Rome, beloved by the people. He died mysteriously young in the East. Rumors swirled of poison, with some blaming the governor Piso or even Tiberius himself, whether illness or foul play. The uncertainty left an empire mourning and whispering. In Rome, Even natural death could look like conspiracy. Coins bore the faces of imperial children to signal stability. Yet time and again, those children vanished, erased from records, victims of accidents, or quietly executed. Each missing face was a silent message. Succession was war. When every heir is a target, is succession leadership or a lottery of survival? For ordinary Romans, imperial succession was addictive drama. Who would rise? Who had been betrayed? Was the emperor poisoned by his wife, or his son, or his so-called friend? Bathhouses buzzed with speculation. Taverns overflowed with rumors. Succession was less politics, more reality TV, except the losers didn't just leave the stage. They left the world. America's dynasties echo Rome's, though in softer form. The Kennedys, the Bushes, the Clintons' families watched, judged, speculated upon. Who runs next? Who carries the torch? Who betrays whom? The rules differ, but the audience's hunger is the same. We binge political drama today. Romans binged it 2,000 years ago, only the stakes were blood. Rome promised eternity, yet its greatest weakness was its own blood. Every emperor, no matter how mighty, lived in fear of his successor. Every heir, no matter how beloved, carried a dagger-shaped shadow. Rome's throne was not made of marble or gold. It was built from whispers, sealed with betrayals, and passed down through a cycle of suspicion. So ask yourself, when dynasties inherit power, do they secure the empire's future or guarantee its doom? The theater of scandal. America has reality TV. Rome had the Colosseum, different arenas, same addiction, watching someone else's humiliation as entertainment. Rome was not only an empire of armies, it was an empire of shows, and scandal itself became the greatest performance. Shame wasn't swept under the rug. It was dragged into the forum, dressed up like theater, and served to the crowd like a feast. Public trials, moral condemnations, whispered rumors all became entertainment. The empire had discovered a truth that media companies still profit from today. Nothing glues an audience like watching the powerful fall. Sound familiar? We don't just watch politics, we binge it. Romans did too, only their stage was marble, not cable. In 56 BCE, during the trial of Marcus Caelius Rufus, pro Caelio, Cicero defended the young man by launching an attack on Clodia, the accuser and central figure of rumor. He branded her the Medea of the Palatine, a sorceress, a temptress, a national shame. The crowd roared. Whether Caelius was guilty didn't matter. Cicero had turned the trial into theater and Clodia into the spectacle. When courts become theaters, is the verdict about truth or applause? Emperors as performers. The emperors themselves were not above the stage. Nero sang on public stages, supported by his troupe of Augustiani, who cheered him day and night. Senators were pressured to attend and applaud endlessly. Ancient sources even exaggerate that they clapped until exhaustion, a humiliating ritual that blurred ruler and performer. But here's the twist. Many loved him for it. His scandals didn't weaken him, they made him irresistible. For the masses, watching an emperor degrade himself was cathartic. For the elite, it was humiliating. And for Nero, it was survival through spectacle. What happens when your leader stops ruling and starts auditioning? Commodus, gladiator emperor. Then came Commodus. If Nero blurred the line between emperor and performer, Commodus shattered it. He dressed as Hercules, fought as a gladiator, and charged Rome a fortune for his appearances. The empire's ruler turned himself into a sideshow act. To the Senate, it was disgrace. To the people, it was mesmerizing. Commodus discovered the ultimate formula. If you can't rule by respect, rule by spectacle. Commodus didn't just fight for sport. Ancient sources describe him slaughtering wild beasts and even parading the disabled or defenseless into the arena spectacle stage so he could claim effortless victories. His reign became less about governance and more about grotesque live-action scandal broadcast to the empire. When leaders turn politics into pay-per-view, are they serving the people or selling them tickets? Emperors quickly realized scandal could be useful. Bread and circuses weren't always enough. So when famine struck or taxes soared, scandals became scapegoats. Moral trials were staged against senators, noblewomen, or generals diverting rage into gossip. Example: Domitian manipulated morality trials to distract from his authoritarian grip, prosecuting Vestal virgins for incestus, unchastity, and senators for maiestas, treason. The people feasted on scandal while their freedoms quietly eroded. When you're laughing at scandal, do you notice power tightening its grip? Why did the people love it? Because scandal shrank the distance between ruler and ruled. Senators seemed untouchable until satire mocked them. Emperors seemed divine until rumors stripped them naked. Juvenal captured it best. The people care only for bread and circuses. But he might have added, in scandal. Rome wasn't just addicted to food and games, it was addicted to shame. Scandal doesn't just destroy trust, it entertains. And entertainment is harder to resist than justice. Today, we replay this cycle. Televised hearings, viral leaks, meme-driven takedowns. Politicians destroyed not by policy but by perception. The arena is digital. The gladiators wear suits instead of armor. But the script hasn't changed. When a celebrity meltdown dominates headlines more than global policy, we echo Rome's obsession. When a politician's affair gets more airtime than a war, we are Romans in the Colosseum, roaring for more. If politics is theater, are we still citizens or just the audience? Rome discovered a dangerous bargain. Scandals keep the people distracted, entertained, and quiet. But the cost is truth itself. When scandal becomes the show, governance becomes performance. When leaders perform, policy erodes. And when policy erodes, empires fall not with a bang, but with applause. So ask yourself, when the lights dim, the cameras fade, and the scandals end, what's left of the empire? When scandal becomes the system. Empires don't collapse when the first scandal breaks. They collapse when scandal becomes the only way they know how to rule. When the exception becomes the rule. At first, scandal shocked Rome. A senator caught bribing, a general accused of adultery, outrage flared like lightning. But by the late empire, scandal no longer shocked. It was expected. It became the bloodstream of governance. The Republic had once prided itself on virtus and mos maiorum, the ancient ways of the ancestors. Now it thrived on slander, rumor, spectacle. To survive in Roman politics was not to stay clean. It was to master the art of being dirty better than everyone else. Sound familiar? When corruption is expected. Is it even corruption anymore or just the job description? Elagabalus, outrage is survival. Crowned at just 14, Elagabalus turned scandal into a governing strategy. He married a Vestal virgin, one of Rome's holiest figures, sworn to eternal chastity. He paraded through the Struries in silks and cosmetics, declaring himself both priest and god. His feasts mocked morality itself. The Senate was horrified, but the people, they couldn't look away. Every day brought a new outrage. Every outrage kept Elagabalus alive until the knife finally caught up with him. In an empire addicted to scandal, Does shame kill leaders or make them unforgettable? Caracalla, scandal by erasure. Caracalla killed his own brother Gaeta in their mother's arms, then launched one of the most chilling scandals in Roman history, Damnatio Memoriae, the erasure of memory. Gaeta's name was chiseled from monuments, his face scratched from frescoes, his image destroyed wherever it appeared. The scandal wasn't just fratricide, it was rewriting reality. Archaeologists today still find inscriptions scarred with erasure marks, scars that whisper Rome's obsession with not just killing the body, but assassinating the past. When power can erase even memory, what truth is left for history to hold? The crisis of the 3rd century, between 230 and 284 CE, Rome endured half a century of chaos. More than 26 emperors rose and fell. Few died peacefully. Almost all were undone by whispers before blades. One was branded a coward, another insane, another corrupt. Each coup justified not with policy, but with scandal. The formula was clear: discredit the emperor with outrage, seize power in his disgrace, and prepare for your own scandal to come. When scandal is the only test of legitimacy, does empire still exist, or is it already theater? For ordinary Romans, scandal became daily bread. They crowded the forum not for laws, but for accusations. They filled the amphitheater not just for blood, but for disgrace. They devoured satire like news, trading rumors in bathhouses the way we trade headlines in news feeds. The empire had created not just a system of governance, but a system of entertainment. And once the people became addicted to shame, no emperor could rule without feeding them more of it. When citizens become audiences, are they still free or just ticket holders in a collapsing show? And when the Goths, Vandals, and Huns finally struck at Rome's gates, the empire was already hollowed out. Scandal had drained its will. The Senate cared more for gossip than strategy. The people cared more for spectacle than defense. The barbarians didn't topple Rome. Rome had already toppled itself. One scandal at a time. Look around today. Leaders rise and fall not only on ballots, but on narratives. One viral clip, one leaked text, one rumor amplified endlessly, and entire careers vanish overnight. But the real danger is not the scandal itself. It is the expectation. We anticipate scandal. We crave it. We scroll for it. Like Romans, we are entertained by the fall of the mighty, so entertained that we miss the empire crumbling around us. What empire are you living in today? One of laws or one of spectacles? Rome's final tragedy was not its invasion, it was its addiction. An addiction to gossip, to outrage, to spectacle. Scandal became its lifeblood, its language, its theater. By the end, Rome was no longer an empire of laws or legions. It was an empire of rumors. And that, perhaps, is the truest scandal of all. So ask yourself when scandal becomes normal, when corruption becomes expected, when politics becomes performance. Is collapse still coming, or has it already happened? Rome did not collapse in fire alone. It collapsed in silence and whispers repeated so often they became truth. In scandals so constant they became normal. Empires rarely die from the sword. They die from forgetting why they were alive in the first place. When politics becomes theater, when laws become performance, when citizens trade responsibility for the comfort of being spectators, collapse is already here, only waiting for applause. Rome's darkest scandals were never just private sins. They were public rituals rehearsed, repeated, consumed by the crowd. And in the roar of laughter, The thrill of outrage. The empire slipped into shadow. And yet, Rome never truly vanished. Its ruins still rise, its words still guide, its scandals still echo in our headlines, our debates, our obsessions. Perhaps Rome is not behind us, but around us. Perhaps its shadow is where we live. So what empire are you living in today? The Colosseum still stands stripped of marble, scarred by centuries, but enduring, empty, yet eternal. A silent reminder that spectacle outlives substance, that the show goes on, long after the republic it once served is gone. And maybe that is Rome's last gift, a mirror polished by the entire history of the Roman Empire. A warning and an invitation. Because history repeats itself, but only for those who forget the ending. If this journey through Rome's darkest scandals moved you, don't let the story end here. Leave a comment. What scandal of Rome shocked you most, and what scandal of today feels eerily similar? Like this video if you believe history still has lessons to teach. Subscribe and join us because, in the next episode, we'll step deeper into the ruins, uncovering the secrets that empires tried to bury. Rome isn't finished, and neither is our story.